Hi, it's Mark. How you doing, guys? I'm not used to this, as everyone listening to me right now knows. I'm used to looking at all of your faces and having the pleasure of irritating each and every one of you in ways that only I can do. I'm here to talk to you today about the way we were, lessons from loss for how to live a meaningful life. And we're living in a very profoundly strange world right now. I'll quote from Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epic of belief, it was the epic of incredulity. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. Tale of Two Cities, Charles Dickens, 1859. Or is that 2020? We very much feel like it was the best of times because this gives us opportunities that we don't really want, but they're here. And yet it's the worst of times, at least for most of us who haven't lived long enough to have already endured horrible times. There are many that I meet every day that survived World War II, the Vietnam conflict, the Korean conflict, 2008's depression, HIV and AIDS in 1980s. And so these people who have survived, and not just survived but thrived, can teach us a lot about how to get through what seems to be an endless situation. That's part of the challenge. Is we don't do well if we don't see an end. To all of the women who are listening, especially the moms, you know all about this. 9 months of personal, oh my gosh, get this out of me, but you can endure because you know it's temporary. Well, we don't have a window like that with coronavirus and the COVID cloud and the hurricane season. So we just don't feel like we've had a break. And that does something to the human psyche and it affects us. And so we have a hard time with that. We're experiencing what I'm calling a profound and prolonged sense of loss. A loss of normalcy, a loss of income for many of us, a loss of personal freedoms. Personal freedoms, including the ability to just hop in the car, go to the store, get in and get out without masking and suiting up and worrying about somebody else thinking that we're not masked enough or that we're too masked. So we're not used to having our routines, our structure, our work interrupted. Many of us have lost the ability in this particular world to perform rites of passage. Weddings, funerals are been postponed or paused or sort of trimmed down to basically nothing. And we've been granted, and many of you listening to me will know I've talked about this for over a decade, we are now inheriting, whether it's on purpose or whether it's karma or whether it's deliberate, we're inheriting the fruit of our seeds of wanting high-tech life and no connectivity. Well, we've got it. Now people don't connect. And it's now the preferred way of doing things once the virus is under control or we have herd immunity or a combination of all the above. It'll be interesting to me personally to see how many return back to their other way of life, because there are advantages to not touching and not seeing. And there's conveniences. I do a lot of mental health, telehealth medicine situations where people can't physically leave their location and come and see me. So there's a lot of pros to this as well. We just have to learn how to stay humane and connected as human beings without the physical touch and hugs that we're accustomed to. I think it's something we can do. I just think it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. So I like to talk for the next few moments. I'm going to keep this more brief than usual, simply because I'm better at human contact and reacting to your faces. And so I feel like I'm sort of talking to robots. And it's a little bit strange, but all of you know me. And so you know that I don't really pull punches live or in WebEx. One of my favorite poems by Rudyard Kipling is If, and I want to start by reading the first and perhaps one of the most prominent lines. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs, but blaming it on you. That is our mantra for today. How do you keep your head? What lessons can we learn about creating a meaningful life in the presence of profound loss? And so I'm only going to have a couple. I'm going to call these the Beatitudes, and I'm going to have two. And basically, attitude is the key. Our attitude is the key to everything in life. I've noticed and I've observed, not just during this crisis, but as far back as 1980 and 83, when the HIV and AIDS crisis showed up, that people either choose an attitude of fear or an attitude of faith. And by faith, I don't mean necessarily an organized religious church experience, although that is one way of expressing it. The attitude of fear or the attitude of faith, people adopt, I'm scared, I will do this because, or I have faith, meaning I believe that we'll get better, it's going to be all right. I have faith in my own self and humankind, modern science. A lot of people today, they are living fear-driven lives. Even people who are still employed go to work based on fear. They're afraid of what will happen if they don't have a paycheck. We do a lot of things that we don't even like, basically because fear is at the heart of why we do what we do. I like coronavirus for lots of reasons, not the least of which is it gives us an opportunity to explore things that we've been afraid to do, but now we have a chance to think about them. Many people have come to me over the years and said, Mark, I don't like my job. I'm bored. I feel like I'm in a rut. And now these people, 6 months later, are coming to me and saying, Mark, I want my life back. I want things to go back to where they were. When it's just all going to be over. And I look right at them because I've known them forever. And I say, you're the one that came in and said you hate your life. Now you've got a chance to create a new one, and you want to go back to the life you didn't like in the first place, which gives them insight into their own way of thinking about their lives and what they expect from life, what life expects from them. And so in this sense, this is one of the positive things that any catastrophe or any crisis brings us. We are forced or compelled to survive and gain different insight and gain different perspectives on what it means to be alive, what hardship can do for us. All of the good things that have happened throughout history have happened in the midst of crisis, not when things are calm. We only grow and we're forced to grow. And this is forcing us to grow. And as you can imagine, many are resisting that. They want things to stay the way they are. We even sign our yearbooks that way. Stay the way you are, never change. We don't like change, and yet change is endemic to the human experience. There's no way around it. So this will pass. It's just taking longer. But personally, for the ones that are listening to me, that know me, I like this because this is opportunity for growth, re-examination, and to ask the question that most of us don't like to ask: what is my purpose on this planet? What am I doing here? Am I just going to work and doing a job just to pay bills and remaining unhappy? And do I have 35 more years of this? And then I'm going to look back and be full of regret and guilt, and I wish I had. This is giving all of us a chance to reevaluate. And so I'd like to offer a couple of attitudes that are in the Beatitudes of my list of things that we can do during this difficult time that create for us a more meaningful life. The first one is be mindful. Be mindful. Now, we hear this word tossed around a lot, mindfulness. And to give you a nice, easy Reader's Digest version, it's to be self-aware. It's to be aware of yourself, how others perceive you, the world around you, and the world you can construct and create. And quite frankly, mindfulness for me right now is basically, it's time. It's your time. Most human beings depend upon some other person, place, or thing to keep them happy or joyful or have a sense of meaning. We farm out our joy and our happiness, and we make it somebody else's responsibility to keep our lives yay. Well, now it's our time to be mindful, and it's our time to do the work that most of us have put off on fixing ourselves and healing ourselves and getting to know ourselves, and things about ourselves we don't like, remove, correct, adjust, modify, adapt. It's our time to take the woundedness within us, make peace with it, and grow. A lot of times couples will come to see me separately after a breakup or a separation or a divorce. and they'll ask the invariable question, how long do I wait until I can date again? And the standard clinical psychotherapeutic answer is 1 year. We know that people tend to get right back into it within 6 to 8 weeks because they are afraid to be by themselves. They're not accustomed to it. They don't like themselves. They spent their lives avoiding who they are. They distract themselves from themselves with all of life's technology and distractions. And so now when they're forced to be alone with themselves, they don't like what they see. Well, mindfulness is a chance for us to actually sit down and take a look at who we are and how we are in who we are so that we can grow and mature. And people often say, well, Mark, I'm waiting for this, or I'm waiting for that. And I'm waiting for, well, I'll do this when, and here's my message. And it's a consistent message that you've heard me say before. Don't wait for anyone to charge over a hill and rescue you. Do it yourself. They may or may not come, but you can't afford to let them come or not come or show up or not show up. You must be your own salvation and take care of yourself and rescue yourself. Be creative, be innovative, and hard times are necessary for the struggle that we need to grow. Hard times are necessary for good times. So we have to have this. And so I like to embrace the chaos and make peace with the storm while I'm in it, and not look at it and ask it not to come on shore. It's that sort of like standing at the beach and asking the incoming tide not to come in. It's coming, so find a way to make peace with it, be mindful of it, and use it to your best advantage. You ask anyone who has survived the 1929 Great Depression or World War II, or any of our 9/11 survivors. People know how to get through difficult, unsure times. We don't like uncertainty, and yet if the truth is actually told and we stop and think about it, and now that we have time to do so, our whole lives are about uncertainty. We plan out our week and our year, but we don't know if we're going to be there or if it's going to be there. So we live in an uncertain world, and yet we pretend that there is certainty with this illusion of life that's not realistic, that life doesn't change on the moment. And for you guys that know me, you know that I live each day literally in the now. I don't even expect to make it to midnight because I don't know, because I am privileged in my work to be in the presence of anywhere from 2 to 10 people who die and leave this planet every day. And I have for years. So it's taught me not to be afraid, but to be very present and accounted for and mindful and grateful for every breath I take and every moment, even if it's painful, because we don't have promises. Most of us act like we do, and we put life off, and we act like we have time, and we take life for granted. We don't say to the people we love, I love you, I need you, thank you, I forgive you, do you forgive me? We act like that can happen later. We stay angry at people and we refuse to forgive them. We wait for them to text or call us and say, I'm sorry. They're not going to do that because they think you should say it first, because they think it's your fault. In the meantime, no one is speaking and time is moving without concern for your calendar, and it will catch you. It will catch you off guard. And then you're playing the catch-up game, and a time comes when lights are out and time moves on, because it is unconcerned about our schedules. And so this crisis, this time of loss that we're all experiencing, it's also a time for us to gain so much perspective. It's great downtime. And so mindfulness is something that I'm encouraging everyone to consider. My second beatitude is be responsible. Now, nobody likes this word because this is not American. Americans like to blame everyone else for everything. We have an industry that exists called litigation, attorneys, and jurisprudence that exists to basically glorify and make a lot of money on it being anybody else's fault but ours. We're just that way in this American culture. We like to find someone else fault. But this beatitude, be responsible, take personal responsibility for yourself. I think that this is something that we should do all the time. I think that we should be people who are not accidental, but people who are on purpose. People often say, "Oh, Mark, all I want to be is happy." And my response sounds snarky, but it's true. Happiness is the wrong goal. Happiness is transitory. I'm happy that it's not raining. I'm happy that it is raining. I'm happy that I have air conditioning. That comes and goes. Happiness is not the goal. Purpose, peace, meaning is the goal. So instead of asking for happiness, which comes and goes, look for purpose for your life, for your day. Look for a sense of peace and well-being. That is sustainable. That is achievable, and that's realistic. Control the things that you can control. In your work toward being responsible, control what you can. You can't control coronavirus. You can't control hurricane season. You can't control job and economics. What you can control is the key. So what is it that you can control? What can you be responsible for? Well, I like to call them the 5 pillars. They're so basic, they're so simple, and yet people don't want to do the simple, basic things. They like more complex formulas. But you've heard me say them before: sleep, nutrition, hydration, exercise, and mindfulness or meditation or any spiritual activity that brings you a sense of joy. It could be music, it could be water, it could be a combination of things. But those 5 pillars are key. We can control those 5 pillars: our sleep, our nutrition, our hydration. The average American walks around sleep deprived and dehydrated every single day, which affects cognition, which affects our mood. So do the things that you can do and control the things that you can control, because we can control those things. We just don't. And I know a lot of people right now who are complaining about their COVID pounds, the weight they've put on from eating as a result of the stress. And that's human. That's very natural and normal. And it's all right as long as I always tell people, look, if you want to eat the junk food, eat it. Eat the good stuff first or alongside it. And move, exercise daily, and get your sleep. These simple things go a long way towards boosting our immune system, our mood, our own mood and attitude itself is great for the immune system. I always tell people, I don't know why I keep saying things to people that I know they're not going to do, but I'm not going to stop doing that. I tell people, look, you don't need an SSRI or an antidepressant if you'll just move and exercise purposefully 30 minutes every day, and don't take the weekend off. You don't stop peeing daily. So why is exercise optional? We should every day move and exercise. We don't need much. Our body's systems, including our mental health, can be improved immeasurably by just 20 minutes a day. But I like 30. And you don't have to go crazy or go to a gym. You can walk, you can ride a bike. There's many ways for us to be moving instead of just sitting. It creates a sense of natural mood enhancement. So that's one of my more favorite of the 5 pillars is exercise or movement. And you can get creative with this. For example, I work at Halifax Health, and I'm often up and down several of the 14 floors and 2 of the different towers. I use the stairs. I always use the stairs. I have for years as a form of during the day exercise. Plus, I don't like elevators. They're too slow. You have to wait. I have to get there quickly. So it's always simple things like that. Park further away. Find the farthest parking spot and make yourself walk back and forth. There's a lot to be said for that. You don't have to go crazy. Just do simple, small things to improve the movement component of the 5 pillars. So in conclusion, I like to challenge each of you to think about what is your purpose in life? What is the point of you being here? Why have you been allowed to live this long? Why are you here at this moment in time? You could very well be gone. Some of my dear friends from this congregation have left their bodies behind and left us to have to deal with a virus we can't see. I'm thinking of several members of this congregation who I spent time with during their final time in their body and as they moved on now, and I can almost hear some of the things that they would say. Learn to love each other, love yourself first, take care of each other, be patient with each other. This too shall pass. Don't become fixated on the news. Pick one credible source and watch it every third day, like a soap opera. Not much will have changed, but just pick one. Don't get fixated. Instead, spend time with your family. Talk to your loved ones. Talk to people that are extended. Do something old-fashioned and help keep the post office from going under. Write a letter. Write a postcard. Talk to people and ask them about their lives. This is a wonderful chance for you to sort of renegotiate who you are and what you're doing here, because we will move through this just as we've moved through everything. But I'd like for us to move through it with many of us being different and being more true to ourselves, because we're all here for a purpose. And we instinctively know what it may or may not be. We just haven't pinned it down. Well, the gift of this loss of normalcy is that we have the chance now to spend some time and find out what's meaningful for us. What does it mean to live a life of meaning and purpose? What does it mean to be on purpose? One of my favorite poems is, well, it's not so much a poem as it is a section from Walden. I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to be on purpose. And right before that, Henry Thoreau says, most human beings live lives of quiet desperation. Well, you're seeing quiet desperation now unravel itself, because this hasn't stopped in a reasonable time, and people are not skilled at prolonged suffering. I've often said if we could learn how to suffer and learn how to struggle like people before us did, we'd be a better people in general. We're just not good at suffering. Americans don't like it. We spend billions to avoid pain and to deny suffering. We're just not skilled at suffering and struggles. And that's where the gold is. That's where we can distill the soul and the good stuff that helps us be at peace, no matter how bad it gets. And we're now learning these things, but we're being forced to, and people don't like that either. They're defiant, and anger comes in, and you get people that aren't ready to learn this lesson, and you're going to have a roller coaster of moods and a collective unsettled feeling in the country and in our community. And you're seeing it. You don't need me to say it. There's examples of it all over the news. And I'm not a doomsday prophet, but I'll say out loud, we're not finished yet. This is going to get a little bit iffier before it gets a little calmer. We've got flu season coming up. We haven't really started several other problems that we're used to seeing. But notice what I said, we're used to it. We've made peace and friends with it. Coronavirus will become just one of the other notches in our gun belt. But right now, it's disturbing a lot of our lives on lots of ways. If it were just a virus, it'd be one thing. But it's affecting our money, our jobs, our idea of who we are as people. A lot of people define themselves by their work, when in fact, that's not really who they are. There's so much more, and they'll tell themselves and their family and anyone who will listen, I can't wait to retire so I can do blank, because that's who they really are. Okay, so is that a wasted life? Is that an on-purpose life? What is that? Well, each person has to answer that uniquely, but this is a time for you to perhaps reconsider why you do what you do and how you spend your time in an on-purpose life. Be kind to each other, and I made a note to say to myself here that it's important to remember that we're being forced to stop being humans doing and start being a human being, learning how to be present and accounted for instead of always trying to do and fix. Some things we cannot simply fix. We've been conditioned and trained to be humans doing, always doing something. Well, coronavirus is giving us a chance to be a human being, and a lot of us aren't good at it. We've just forgotten how to simply be quiet, how to be alone with ourselves. I don't mean isolation, I mean solitude, as a practice for learning how to be at peace and to accept the good, the bad, and the ugly in our own lives, and to love ourselves as is, and to improve what we can, and to accept what we cannot, and to make peace with that, being at home in our own skin, so to speak. So in conclusion, I'll say, be kind to one another, but start with yourself. Be patient with one another, but start with yourself. Have fun, laugh. Laughter is a great anti-anxiety medication. Start with yourself. Make fun of yourself. Don't take life so seriously. It's not meant to be taken that way. Laugh. Create laughter and joy. Check on your neighbors. Call them, message them. In my neighborhood, when I go to the store, I have several elderly people. They can't get out regularly and their caregiver is away. So I'll pick up whatever I need to pick up for them at the store. It's no real extra burden, but it helps them stay socially connected. This is a time for us to do what we do after hurricanes. You'll hear people say this on TV. They'll come out and they'll be interviewed by a reporter and they'll say, I didn't even know my neighbor. And next thing I know, he's in my front yard sawing up a tree that fell on my roof. It brings out the best and the worst. And it's all right as long as we can be choosing our attitude of being positive and hopeful and joyful. And we will get through this like we've got through everything else. I love all of you guys, and you're free to reach out to me, as most of you do, through email or on the phone. Take care and God bless.